Well, welcome everybody to the Shifting Realities podcast. I'm your host, Julie Allison, and with me is my co host and my friend, Rob Perry. Now, today we're going to talk about what is light language for anyone out there who's heard about it but not sure what it is, or even any of you who's feeling that you've started either talking in light language or there's something that is coming through you that feels like you're drawing light language, or anything like that. And we're going to go right through and talk about what Rob and I have experienced in our light language. And don't forget, this is our perception and information from our guides on how we can interpret what we think light language is. So you can always discern for yourself and go and have a look at everybody else's slant on light language as well. We do feel that there's far more to come, but we're going to say it as it is, as we've had information from the guides so far. So let's have a look then. What is light language? And we're going to start by dissecting light and then language. Now, think about this, is that we have light language is just something that human beings have called it. And this is because if we take the light part of light language, what I saw when I started speaking light language is the guide would show me that light was coming down from my source through the light language, and it held data packets. And remember, if you want to know more about light, in the last episode we talked more about light, but this light it had data packets, so it had data in it to inform or send messages to somebody else's DNA. So it's like a message to somebody, and that message would either be an activation or a repair in the DNA to help, to help them heal, basically. So in other words, that light part of it, the data is all about healing in some way. And really, let me just have a look. The message here is when I asked about it the other day. Yeah. And I'm still umming and ahhing about this. The guide said, light language, it preserves the word of God. So it's a bit like a Bible scripture. And I was a bit, oh, for goodness sake, guys. And they went, yeah, that's right. That's blaspheming. That's not the word of God. And so they understand now when they give me these sort of perceptions on things, is they know that I can take it, because the word of God, of course, God, we have the God code within us. So our interpretation here, mine and Rob's, is that we are God. It's not something else. And preserving the word of God means any words should be healing and beneficial to our DNA. Our DNA, when it's in the most beautiful structure, will help our body, will be a healed body. And so that's really part of the light part of light language. And light language is the language part of it is because it's an expression of communication. So us humans, with our English language, said we'll call it light language, and it just has become a universal name for what we understand as this expression we're using in communication. But here's the other thing about it. The guides have said this light language, as we would understand it, is a universal language, is a language of our soul, or even more so, the language of our source expression. And so I get a lot of people asking, how do they, how can they interpret light language? So if I speak light language, they expect the interpretation might be something like, hello, my name is Julie, this is the weather today, or this is what we're going to heal. And this is where we've got to go beyond our humanness. This is where we've got to bring in our soul, our intuition, and we can even say it's our heart, that to listen to any light language that's been spoken, or any light language that's been expressed in a different way. And so this is not something that's just human. This is not a language like the English language or any other language on earth in that sense. So language to me, it kind of distorted what light, what the light um, alchemy for DNA is, because I feel that light language is it alchemizes your DNA into something that's beneficial and healing for us. Okay. So Rob, do you want to say any more about this, and how we can interpret it, and how it should be interpreted, rather than being interpreted in a human sense?
Indeed. It's really tricky with light language, isn't it? Because
Hmm.
as you know, you tend to speak it, I tend to write it,
Hmm.
or I tend to visualize it when I'm working
Mm,
with clients,
yeah.
when I'm bringing codes down. I think what's really important to realize is that light language crosses all dimensions.
Mm,
So it's the one common thing
mm,
that everybody can understand and connect to. So it impacts in our DNA because those do the same. So bringing light language down, or channeling light language as we do to our clients, is a means of helping them raise their vibration and heal. Um, it's awfully hard to define it because you can't see it. Some people
mm.
sing it, some people say it, some people dance it, some people sign it. I write it, you say it. So there's many, many ways to look at light language and experience it. You're very right. It's not a language per se. It's a coding mechanism that's common to everything and everyone, and you just have to reach out to it. Make any sense to you, Jenny?
Yeah, I absolutely
Yeah.
agree. That is perfect. A perfect explanation, Rob. Yes. And that's why, it's difficult to call it a language, because it
Mm.
can be expressed in many, many forms. In fact, actually, the way I think I will say what it could be like, what it's like, the nearest thing is like listening to music, where
Yeah.
music goes. If you think about it, it's not just hearing music, it goes right through the cells of our body. So, for instance, we could hear some music that would create a dance theme, or we could create some music that would cause us to maybe be upset and cry because of the words and the music, the lyrics and the music that goes with that. So what we would say is, we are going to, at the very end of this podcast, we're going to do some light language. But what I'd like you to do with this then is, first of all, be discerning. Is it for me? We will give you a chance to do that. But then don't think about listening to it with your headspace, with your ego, with that
Yeah.
monkey mind. Go connect into your heart space. Think about bringing your soul forward, or focus on where your soul is, and you don't have to worry too much at the moment with that. So you're listening from soul, and feel it in every essence, every cell of your body, and what does it mean to you? That's how you interpret it. It's like a kind of language, I'm going to say, of love, but it's not always, if you think of love being a frequency, it's not always like that, but of the light, as in, it's going to be for healing in what Rob and I do. Okay. And so, the only other thing we want to tell you about this is to sort of be aware when, I've just said this is a language of, universal language that would be of benefit. Rob and I are both aware now, when we look out there, to social media, we're seeing a lot of people who maybe speak. There's a lot of speaking of light language, and we listen with our soul. We listen to that and think, that either just doesn't feel right, or it doesn't. It's just doing absolutely nothing. So this is where you need to practice your discernment on here. Is this is this any good for me? Is it going to benefit me? So somebody just saying, this is a light language and it's going to clear all your Akashic records, da-da. That doesn't really work like that. Be very discerning, thinking that I don't think that's really going to be what it's about. I'll also tell you a bit about my experience in when I didn't discern, when I was first had light language, first got into light language, is that I used to then somebody told me about watching some videos of people that have been doing light language for a long time, and there was somebody who was very famous with it, and they were very good at it. It was all for benefit. But I watched one video and I remember it being 10 o'clock at night. And as I started the video, just on YouTube, just a free video on YouTube, I could absolutely feel all my guides swoop down. Now, they've never done that very many times in my life, but the guides swooped down, told me to completely, switch off immediately, stop it immediately. And I could feel them doing some kind of psychic surgery, and they had to manipulate and alchemize the DNA again. They had to kind of repair what had happened. And so in this respect, I felt like it wasn't the person who was intentionally creating light language that wasn't of benefit, but I felt that it had been infiltrated. So, which is why Rob and I we're going to have already put a huge protection on us and this podcast so that to attempt in it not to be infiltrated, and attempt for it to be of benefit for all time to come. So you've got to really watch and discern, practice that discernment. We've said before with anything, but particularly with the light language, particularly with the light language that we're hearing on some of the social media.
Yeah, Julie, let me jump in there. I
Yeah.
think, talk about discernment is really, really important with light language because there is a lot of nonsense out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you
Yeah.
listen, and you've said this, but I want to say it again, is don't listen with your intellect. Because the minute you start to analyze it
Absolutely.
and think about it, it will basically just be meaningless, just be noise. But if you listen with your soul, so use your heart, open your heart and listen that way, you will very quickly learn to identify what is light language and what isn't light language. And let's just mention here that there is only one light language, but we are human beings and we have a physiology. We have a larynx and a set of lungs, and we articulate with our mouth and our teeth. So we can only make a certain range of noise or sound. So when we speak light language, it is likely to differ a little. We are interpreting it as a 3D physical person can interpret it. So the true sound of light language is audible, but not conveyable to us through ourselves, because we simply aren't built to do that. And likewise, you will get varying accents will come out. You and I, Julia, are both from Yorkshire, but you still sound like you're from Yorkshire.
Yeah, I do.
I left when I was 6, so I sound more sort of received pronunciation. So even that will put a slight difference on it. And even when you're out in the light language universe, there are various dialects of it coming down from different races, from different parts of the universe with different intentions. So again, you might get variants. And people have often said, and I agree on this, that if you listen to ancient languages on Earth, Akkadian, anything from the Indus Valley and North Africa, there is a decided hint of light language in those. And I think that is correct, because light language was the first language spoken on the planet, common to everybody before we developed our own languages, our own means of speaking, our own dialects, our own specific languages subject to our geography. So if light language sounds somehow distantly familiar to you, it is because it's part of your heritage. And I think we're at a point now where we're reclaiming it, which is exciting. But we're reclaiming it in a sense of ascension, raising our vibration with it, learning to heal with it, learning to help with it, learning to fix the earth with it. So the importance of light language is vast. and its benefit is enormous. But please, as you said, Julie, discern, listen with your heart, don't listen with your head.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes. Yeah, this light language, it's a remembrance. It's not something new that's coming down, as Rob said. It's just we're remembering part, this is all part and parcel of who we really are. And that, we can see eventually that this will just be a universal language, and we'll immediately pick up what it means. Those of us who have picked up light language, and it's activated in us, are still wondering, and I'm still asking the guides all the time, what is the potential for this? Because I don't know about you, Rob, but I can feel that there's so much more. There's so much more for us to give. We haven't suddenly activated light language in us for no reason at all.
Yeah.
But I just feel there's absolutely more to come, and we're still being drip fed. Those guys, they're still drip feeding us.
Of course they are, and that's because we're only ready to take so much.
Mm.
But we've
Oh yes.
spoken on our last podcast about using sound to heal, using
Mm.
light to heal. This is the granddaddy of all those. This is the grand slam. It's the combination of it all when it's well used.
Yes. Mm.
And so it needs to be used with caution and with unconditional love,
Yes. Yes.
always.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
People often say to me, "Oh, that sounds like speaking in tongues," the sort of Pentecostal religious thing. And that's a very interesting comparison, because it isn't that far off. But I would say that speaking in tongues is probably a diluted form, and often caused by, I don't want to say mass hysteria because that sounds really negative and I don't mean it, but it's something that as a group you can just cotton into and go with. So without knocking that at all, it's higher than that and has more reach than that and more power than that. And it's not connected to any religion at all. It is common to everybody. Everything that lives is connected to light language.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Shall we have a go at shall we have a go at this? Shall I do some light language? And
I think,
we
Jill, if you want to speak some light
yes.
language,
Ooh,
I
yes.
am going to. What would you like me to do? Shall I write my own light language, or shall I try to write what I think you're saying?
What would be so
Yeah.
fascinating if I'll set an intention, but I won't say what it is, just out of
Okay.
just for fun.
Yeah.
And Rob, yes, if you do your usual, if you do your writing of light language and interpret, the intention for it, and with
Let's see
me,
what happens.
I can just, my original, I can write some light language, but if I'm writing, I still have to speak it. I might be signing as well. I might be using my hands, so that's not on audio.
Yeah.
You won't see that, but if you're watching a video, you'll be able to see it as well. And it just comes. So for me, speaking the light language, it just comes through. It's not something I have to think about, but I
Yeah.
also know I've not sort of bypassed. I'm not channeling something that I'm not in control of as well. I could stop at any time if I wanted to. Um, but it literally just comes through, just like the English language does. But I'm going to say in a different way. It actually comes from, from my source to your source, basically, that helps the
Yeah.
human body. That
Yeah.
helps the
You had to
human
learn
body.
English as a kid.
Yes,
You
yeah,
don't have to learn light language.
no,
You have to practice
it
it
just comes.
and
Yeah.
expose yourself, but it is already there.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. You do have to practice. Yeah, you do have to practice. I must admit, I was activated, I'm going to say, with my light language, which all that means is a remember. Whenever I say DNA activation, I always mean just remembering, activates that, it switches on what you should have already know about. And this is why we're talking about, us as, our souls as thousands and thousands of years ago would have just spoken it on this planet. And as Rob said, it's just been, diluted, and now it's coming back. It's all coming back to us. So yes, it literally just gets switched on, and it's then it changes over the years. Mine has changed as I've practiced and done more with it. So without further ado, I will bring some light language through, and I want all the listeners now to discern for themselves and bring their focus.
To the
Bring their
heart.
focus to the
Yeah.
heart. It's the easiest thing to get to your soul. Bring your focus to the heart space. Stop the monkey mind. Bring your focus to your heart space while you listen to this. Esk umbalai idhar imara ikalastodanara hakashtolare mara. Lere mocht kindera istana meskuridi kara umare ika. Lestondari ikindela umpakita astomba. Lene orska lerumorhikalashtundra eke. Mere eskindela östumbraka. Laskumbra eke dalasto. Lere ikumbri daskore ikalasto. Didakaskola marikita. Lere umba akekestora karakporu. Disgora ama ikuridas dikala ustumre ke kalovsta. Ikuridas kumbre ikala stumbre akalasto a ama ikuma. Pere ekuma lai nore uma ikala estunda. Ma ekuma stunda ama akadotosta. Leskurda ikurda mara istikridistokrada. Likurima teko astikoristi tarastu. Wastikariti kanem ort ik inar oma akidara istikridosta. Lara oma akorde. Lera sto koridasto. Mari koridasto. Korida. Thank you. So I'm going to say thank you to the guides because they do feel like they come and support me, even though the language is coming through, my source and my higher self. I still am very aware that the guides are present. So thank you, guides.
I can vouch though, Julie, because that is substantially different from the language I remember you using before.
Yes.
Much more fluent and much more rounded and fuller. So it's like there's more there.
It is. I do remember when I first started, it's as if you're just trying to get words out. And for some of you who are experiencing feeling like you're on your own when you've light language has been activated and don't know who to speak to, bear with us because we can help you because we've been there before with when we first started and didn't know, I didn't even know it was called light language. I just suddenly heard a video and heard somebody, and that's how mine was activated. And they said, I'm going to do some light language, and I was thinking, what on earth is this? Didn't know much about it, but I remember the next day from watching this video in September 2019 was when mine was activated. All I did, Rob, was go, curious, I wonder if I can speak it. That was it. And it started then. And it just strange words came out. And so it is a bit of a practice. It's a bit like doing the reading your Janet and John books to start with. Just words came out. And sometimes you'll feel those same words are repeated coming out. And that's okay. But you then extend from that. And again, before I did my light language, I was in connection with my guides and my higher self anyway. So it might be, it depends on what stage you're at as well. And that's not saying that anybody's, above you in frequency. That's just saying this might be, it depends how your path is as well as to whether you will even speak light language or you will encounter it. So what I was going to say, Rob, was do you feel like it's more like an Irish? I feel like there's an Irish, like 2D sort of fairy Irish, something like a Gaelic tinge to it now. I could be wrong, but it feels more like that now.
You're wrong.
That's good.
You're wrong to my ears.
Yeah.
And that's my ears as opposed to my heart. I don't get that at all. I get something way, way more celestial than anything earthbound.
Wow.
So, I mean, Gaelic is a very ancient language, and there could be strands in that, but parts of my family speak Gaelic fairly fluently, and I'm not getting it.
It's nothing like that. Well, that's so interesting. And this is my interpretation, because I've never heard. I just sort of thought, is it a bit Irish and Gaelic? And some people have said that, but not if if your family speaks Gaelic. That's amazing.
I think
Amazing.
it's terms of reference as well. It's what do we know and what can we
Yeah.
hear, and then how
Yes.
can we relate it to what we know. And the
Yes.
fact is, we really shouldn't bother because whether
And that
your light language has an Irish root or a
or
whatever
not, it
root
doesn't matter.
is frankly immaterial. It's light language.
And this is what
Yeah,
Rob is teaching, teaching me that I've put myself in a box, haven't I? Oh, it must
yeah.
be
Of course
again,
you have.
I've
Yeah,
put myself
yeah,
in a human 3D box. So even though we keep telling you
yeah,
that go beyond your human, here am I, human Julie, going, oh, I think it must sound like this. But it
yeah.
certainly sounds different to the, when we first, sort of when you first heard it from me, Rob, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And what is notable to me right now is that um, before in this podcast you spoke the light language, and after you've spoken the light language in this podcast, your energy is
Mm,
completely different.
mm,
You've suddenly
feels
become
it.
lit up,
Yes.
positive, direct, enthusiastic, excited, and that's simply what channeling that little bit of light language did to you.
It does.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, it benefits
it's
us, doesn't
extraordinary.
it, Rob? As well as the
Yeah,
pet, as well as if you're doing
it
it to
has to
whatever,
because
one
it
person or
you
a group.
you are
Yeah.
channeling it.
Yes. Yeah.
In this case, you were sharing it with a podcast. You might be working with the client one-on-one, and you're just channeling the light
Yes.
language to them.
Yeah.
You speak it, you verbalize it. I tend to visualize it and hear it.
Yes.
And as
Yeah.
you said earlier, it is a sound phenomenon as much as a light
Yeah.
phenomenon, and I
Mm.
hear it as music,
Yes.
a kind of
Yes.
celestial music that is not really something you can define very easily. But that's my experience and how I
Absolutely.
use it. So I
Mm.
wrote what you said,
Okie doke.
and
This will
this
be
looks
good.
like an absolute mess. My handwriting, normal handwriting in terms of earth handwriting, is shocking and worse than a doctor's. That means my light language writing is frankly not much better. So I will show it you. I don't think you can
Yes.
see it. Right, let me try and get
We can
to.
see it now, Rob.
Can you see
Perfectly.
enough?
We
Yeah,
can
I mean,
see it
if you're on
now.
YouTube, you
Yeah.
can see it.
Yes.
When I started
That's
writing it down,
fine.
it was a mess. And as I got into your speaking, it became clearer and clearer. So if you look at that section up there,
So it's in different sections,
that's
isn't it?
it went all over the place because
Yes.
we write language from right to left.
And
Arabians write from the other way around.
yeah,
We
light
don't.
language
Light
is all
language comes
over.
from every which direction,
It
including
does.
behind me and in front of me.
It does. Yeah,
Yeah, this is a flat piece of paper, so I can only write it in this way, but there's no linear to it at all. Yeah,
absolutely not. That's
yeah,
again,
yeah,
linear is the humanness
yeah,
of it. And we've got to think about, and what I was going to say with Rob's, with saying that it's on a two-dimensional, piece of paper.
yeah,
When you look and study light language, when you look at it, you'll feel it. You'll actually, what I tend to do is you see the I can't even explain what it is. The written, it's not even a written word, is it? You'll see
yeah,
the written language and it will come out. It will feel like it's coming out of the page and almost going into a 3D
yeah,
etheric version, because what that language is doing, we need to explain a bit more about geometry, but what that language is doing is creating this beautiful geometry. It's all mathematics, it's all codes, creating the alchemy by creating a really nice, non-distorted geometry that helps
yeah,
heal the body. And so, yes, the language isn't just something that you're, in English language, you're working from your mind, aren't you? Your psyche mind.
yeah,
Whereas with light language, once again, even seeing it on the screen, you have to go from your heart and you'll see it jump off the page. So I might study it a bit more. I'll get Rob to email me and I'll study it a bit more and I can see it, because that's nice, because again, it'll feel like music. Your whole body will see it jump off the page and will react to it in a good way.
absolutely. And you know what's interesting about this? We've never done this exercise before, so
No,
it's just
it's
a bit of interest.
cool. Yeah.
This is not how I write light language myself.
How
There are
interesting.
bits I go, oh yeah, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. But otherwise, I don't recognize this
Mm,
at
mm,
all. So this is a completely different way of writing it
dialect.
to anything I've done before. This doesn't look like anything I've done.
Yeah. How fascinating is
So
that? That it's us,
yeah,
yeah, that we can easily, it's you don't have to have seen that dialect before to just pick up that dialect or that. Let me just see what the guides are saying about dialect. Just literally, it's coming from all corners. What they're saying, it's all corners of the universe. But literally, so when, as if you're a Palladian and talking to somebody else, maybe it's not Arcturian because they don't seem to. But if they're talking to somebody else, it'll be a different, like we said, they call it dialect. It could be completely feel like a different language, but because of telepathy, because of the way that we don't have to hear the spoken word, they will be able to communicate with each other, even though it's completely different. And also with Rob, what will have happened is, there's also, we haven't looked into it too much, but with myself and Rob, we'll have had history, galactic history together of some description. So Rob may have written and spoken in his galactic history that language, and he's just been, that's somewhere where I feel it's kind of just been activated to a different, to a different dialect. He may never pick it up again, or he may start to use like language like that. And that's what you can do. And I think that's what's happened over my time. The language I first spoke was probably something from a particular race. And as I've expanded and looked at more races, more things have come in, more remembrance has come in. Does that make sense, Rob?
Yeah,
with that as well.
It does. Yeah. That's a lot to grasp for people.
Yes.
My own theory with light language is that it is out there and available, regardless of your ancestry and your starseed ancestry, and that whatever your starseed ancestry is, they were simply interpreting the light language that was out there. So they weren't inventing it and speaking it for the first time. No. They were just channeling it as we are.
Yes.
And they, of course, have their own physiological way of producing sound.
They do.
Or thinking sound in many cases. Because speech is a fairly low density phenomena, that kind of sound, whereas people higher up the chain tend to work more with their minds.
Yes, and, they do. Yes.
Something more than their minds, but that's another story.
Yes. Yeah. So did you feel, with it being new to you, Rob, could you interpret it in any way, or does it not make sense? And it doesn't matter either way, does it?
Do you know what? No, it doesn't. What's odd is I got a lovely feeling off it. It felt really nice and gentle and calm and positive. But I was so busy writing it.
Yes.
That I wasn't interpreting it, but the writing was really fluent. Or fluid is perhaps the best way to say it.
Yes.
And that I just wrote as it came. I didn't have to think about the writing once I was past maybe the first 10 seconds. Then I thought, okay, I'm in this now, I can write it. And I just went for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was your intention with it?
Okay, the intention was I'm going to say to activate people into being that strength, that strong person, activate people into their power, and just give them a little gift for themselves. So for you, Rob, and everybody, into kind of like your next, or anybody's next frequency, a little bit higher, and to enable you to get the word out. A lot of this is, let's get the word out. Let's all get this word out and be strong when we know that there are people out there that might be not believing us, let's say, who are still asleep. So what it's doing basically is helping you who might be awake, as we call it, to become even more awake. So be even more in your power of what's possible and what you can do to shine your energy, shine your light, in fact, to allow those who are, we call it asleep. I don't like calling it that, but we all understand what that means. So for those who are asleep, to possibly more of them to become awake.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I've said from the guides. Did that make sense, Rob? Because that's what I'm getting from the guides, and I kind of was
that makes perfect sense. Absolutely,
I wasn't quite
sense.
With it. Yeah.
No,
so basically,
of course.
Activating...
You're almost interpreting your own light language.
Yes, I was.
Translating your own
from
light
the guides. Yes.
Absolutely.
It felt too technical.
Absolutely. And again, for anybody who's listening to this, don't feel you need to understand that as language. Please remember that always. You're listening with your heart and your body and your makeup, your spiritual makeup. So it's not about Julie saying hello, good morning. You can all speak light language
Mm.
now. It's simply about Julie channeling an intent in light language that you may or may not connect with. So don't overthink it. Don't labor it. Just let it be, and you might surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, we just want to add, I'm saying we, the guys are coming in,
Yeah.
want to add as well. If you were to, so what happens is, depending on people's, frequency and knowledge and perception on things, this could change you in some ways as it comes out now. And if you were to hear it in 6 months' time, it would still be useful to you, and it will just activate you a little bit more. And in 6 months
Yeah.
after that, it will activate you a little bit more, which is fantastic. So, whilst our podcast can be out for many years, each time one person could hear it at different times, or new people can hear it, and it will activate them to what their ability is and their perception is and their knowledge is at that moment in time. So it's
Yeah.
not going to all be, I'm not activating everybody to have the light language, I'm activating them or helping them. When I say activating, you'll have given your permission for your DNA to be activated, and it'll also be some kind of, I suppose, a contract in some ways to, for you to, and I'm saying you, Rob, and
Yeah.
you listeners, to go, yeah, I really want this. I want to get to next level up. Next level up is the way I say it, so that you can
Yeah.
expand. Everything is about expansion of your soul and learning and growing, the gifts that, your soul already knows, but you're just getting activated
Yeah.
now because it's been asleep for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would urge anybody who wants to try to connect with light language is
Mm.
just have a quiet moment with yourself and just try.
Mm.
A lot of people get embarrassed by it.
They
So
do.
they think they're just speaking silly nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because at the beginning you might speak some silly nonsense while you try to get your head around how to make these sounds. But the more you listen and open, it will just flow.
Mm.
It
Absolutely.
it will become the simplest thing in the world. And it's when you labor it that it becomes difficult and you shut down. So heart center open, let it flow, and have fun with it. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to
I've
say,
never.
yeah.
Here's an interesting point. I've never heard negative light language in any way, because I
Mm.
don't think the language allows it unless it's tampered with.
Yeah,
And
it has to
you've
be
had that
tampered.
experience.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was infiltrated. It wasn't the language, it wasn't the person that
Yeah.
had intentionally done it. It's obviously been, it's been good in the past. It had been, there's something had gone in, maybe AI,
Yeah.
who knows? Something had gone into it to tamper with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Which can happen. And yeah, and if you're on YouTube, there are 5 million people putting
Mm-hmm.
out light language
Mm-hmm.
videos. Again, just be discerning.
Mm.
Some of them might be on the same path you're on, and they might not quite have it right yet, but they're trying.
Mm.
Some of them might be just making it up because it's fashionable to do so at the minute. You'll know.
Yeah.
If you're listening
Yeah.
with discernment, heart discernment, you will figure it out very quickly.
Yeah.
So don't be scared of it. And if you don't like what you're hearing, turn it off.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
But try. Have a go, guys. If you're listening, have a go. It's a whole lot of
Mm.
fun and eventually becomes an immensely powerful thing.
Yeah,
So
it's so
try
lovely,
it.
powerful because it feels so lovely. It's that
Yeah.
like everything with connecting with the guides, it's that loving feeling. So it creates that power within you, rather than always going out to look at somebody else's light language continually, wondering what it is. Go within and just try it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to say now, I don't speak it in front of, sort of my family. They wouldn't know, they wouldn't get it. But here I am speaking to, into it with a podcast. But I don't, it's not something that don't worry that it's, that you feel embarrassed with it. Just do it. As I say, I do it in the shower to practice with. I do it in,
Yeah.
just in this room to practice with. But I do it with clients and, anybody who is, of our sort of, awake and, is getting into it. it's meant to be that, it's meant to be a path either to hear it, and to get into it a little bit, whether it's just hearing others speak it or actually, owning it for yourself, waking it up in yourself, the remembrance of how we, used to speak to each other, which is just basically, as Rob said, absolutely, it should be called, it's the language of love, light
Yeah,
and love.
totally. Totally. It's
Yeah.
the only language that every human
Mm,
being
mm,
can understand, and the only language that
yeah.
every sentient being across dimensions can understand.
Yeah. And heal from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Good stuff, Julie.
Right. Yes. I think that's, a lovely podcast for today. And I think it's a good time to end there.
Yeah,
And just hope everybody enjoys this one and, listens with the heart, heart and soul.
absolutely. And if you have enjoyed it, let us know and we can come back with some more on this,
Mhm.
because it is a
Yes,
never-ending subject.
it is. We could go on forever with this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. And it's a wrap. It's a goodbye from us.
Indeed. We'll see you next week.